Welcome to Eternally Bored.
Welcome to Eternally Bored.
Welcome to Eternally Bored.
This is episode 26th in recording, but it's going to be posted as 24th because we already have 2 episodes in the can, and this is right after BGGcon 2018, so we want to be, up on the news. We want to share our thoughts on the latest Essen releases, and, it just makes more sense to release this episode as close to BGGcon as possible. So, you've never met Elisa. Elisa, introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Elisa. I'm a UX, UI, and product designer that loves to play board games.
Yes, that's very good. This is her 3rd introduction to Eternally Bored, so I think she's gotten a good job and a rhythm with it.
But your first exposure to the masses.
Exactly, and then someone who probably needs no introduction, so...
Well,
we'll get you one anyway.
The most critical gamer.
Yes.
Yeah, it's me, Ben. Known for having the best taste in games.
Oh.
Without question. There is no controversy about that at all.
Yes.
Alright.
And of course, we are your hosts, Charles Washington.
And Troy Chambers.
Alright, so let's go ahead and jump into it because we have a lot to discuss. So, just to start with, general feelings about the con. How do you feel like it was this year compared to other years? And at least I believe it is your first time, so why don't we start with you? How did you feel about it?
Oh, I loved it. I have told my group that it's the best vacation I've ever had. Mostly because
You didn't sleep.
I did not sleep, that is correct. I got to game for however long I wanted every single night. Also, it was incredible. We're talking about the best experience? I mean, like, the best part of it?
Just general feelings at the moment.
Yeah, so it was incredible just meeting other gamers that we don't usually game with as well, and having access to all those games, hot games, new games, and just a lot of games in general.
Excellent. All right. So our other special guest, Ben, how do you feel?
I feel the way I do about most BGGcons, which is a lot of crap, a couple good games. That's basically it. It's just a lot of weeding through the terrible things to get to the few gems. But there were a few good ones this year, so very positive. Few of them.
All right, and I would say it was a good year, but not a great year. Like, I have a lot of games that I rated a 7, but I only rated one game an 8, and I'll talk about that game later. So I would definitely say it was more of a good year than maybe a mediocre year than a great year. But it's hard to come back. Like, last year, it was like Spirit Island and Gloomhaven were my, top 2 releases for that year. So the 2018 had a lot to live up to, and it's just not doing it so far, but I can't really expect that.
And for me, this was, from an experience standpoint, my absolute best set of experiences I've ever had at BGGcon. Conversely, I'm so ready to leave the hotel. I'm just glad it's over. Let the Dallas Hyatt Regency just go into memory, or a spring BGGcon if you like to attend that. But as a major board gaming convention in America, I just think they need more space and more dining options. The buffet was good. So there you go.
And this was the best year for buffet. It didn't make my top experience, but like, of all the years we've had the buffet, this is probably the best year. Like, only the Saturday night dinner I didn't care for, but I had the buffet every single meal pretty much this time. And they definitely stepped up their game a little bit, which doesn't matter anymore because we're leaving. But I'm glad our last buffet experience was a good one.
Shouts out to the Cookie Pimp, Amy, and for working with the buffet members along with BGG and getting a lot more options. So there you go.
Very nice. All right, let's go into our worst experience though. So
I'll start us off.
All right, go ahead.
Because my worst experience at BGGcon was actually leaving late to get to BGGcon, making Trey and my ride turn around to get me. Absolutely worst experience. Then I had to leave my car in a parking lot of, let's say, a discount Walmart, but it wasn't really a Walmart. It's like a knockoff of Walmart for the entire link for the con. But it was safe in there when I got back, so...
Hopefully the only second-degree misdemeanor we ever admit on camera on the show.
Vehicle temporary abandonment.
Alright, Elisa, your least favorite?
Okay. Well, hopefully she's not watching. But there
was this... That's a really good introduction.
There was this girl at Werewolf that... From day one that she came in was like, buy my art! And she was like screaming it to every single person that walked in the room. And
If you went to BGGcon,
She-
you probably know who this person is.
I mean, you know, I was never like that as a teenager. So I was like, well, she's young. No, that's not a good excuse. Anyway, so like I said, every time someone walked into the room, buy my art, and she would have her like iPad or iPhone or whatever, and she's like, here, look at all my art, you know, and tell me what you want. I'm like, what? Anyway, so she made it known that her favorite role to play was a witch, and she actually got that role on the first day that she played. Well, she comes
Sounds
a
like a
second.
setup.
She comes a second evening, and she just happens to get the wolf cub, right? And you can just tell she's just miserable, sitting in her chair. And all of a sudden she stands up, she's standing behind her chair, and she's swinging her leg back and forth during the game, right? While people are like having very concentrated discussions. And then all of a sudden, while someone is, you know, talking, she flips over the chair, and then everybody turns and looks and is like, what is going on with this girl, you know? And then she finally sits in her chair. Exactly. She finally sits in her chair, and while someone is giving their defense, she's like, does anyone have a Band-Aid? And literally, someone next to me is just like, why are we babysitting? And then I was just like, I couldn't hold myself back, but I was just like, why is it always all about her?
Anyways,
I'm pretty sure she heard one of the comments, and then
I know. You gotta,
and she
like,
left. She left.
Yeah, I mean, you have to address that. All that stuff would have prevented if you just said something in the first place, right?
Yeah. I mean, she got her
Collectively.
Band-Aid, and, you know, she left because I felt like because she was a wolf cub, she wasn't the witch. You know, and Jeremy's like, does anyone want to take over her role?
so does this mean you'll be skipping BGG Spring?
There'll be even more kids there at BGG Spring.
Oh my god. Anyway,
Because
so
the minimum age is
least
like
favorite
13.
experience was that girl, but also one very quick one. I was in Assassin, and it kind of sucked that someone in
Assassin.
our group actually eliminated me.
Losing games for a treasure.
Yeah, I mean, you know, I would have, and he never found my target. So actually, what would have been better would have been, hey, let's try to find my target together, and if we find it, I'll give it to you.
We're moving
Yeah,
to
anyway.
a gray area
That
here.
would've
been-
Them?
That would have been
Whoa,
better.
metagaming, Alright, let me tell you about my least favorite. I feel just super stressed out right now just listening to that story. I'm like, man, I would do things to that girl that would not be,
Yeah.
not be things that I'd make
would
on
be-
camera.
yeah.
Not good things, suffice to say. Alright, so my least experience, so I went to designer publisher speed dating this year. And I gotta say, it wasn't as organized as well as it could have been. There were a lot of issues with it.
It was sponsored by Unpub this year, if I remember correctly. Correct? Or
Yeah.
run by them again.
Yeah, I think it was. And the issue was there was a lot of confusion about when people were gonna get into it. So it was like we found out we were gonna be in it like the day before the event happened, and they ended up having 2 rooms for it because they let people go to it 2 days in a row. And I was in the outside room and I saw like half as many publishers as the other people. So
Yeah.
it was
You got kicked to
pretty
the
bad.
overflow room, even though you were on the list, which I thought
Yes.
was upsetting.
Yeah.
So it was. I understand why. Like they wanted to get as many designers get their game seen as possible. So it was a good motive behind their actions. But letting people in who were not on the list was super bad because they didn't have nearly enough publishers. I actually left before the event was over because I was only seeing a publisher like once every 3 rotation, and been even less than that.
Yeah.
So it was
You were
like
on the
I saw like
inside.
4 publishers for like 3 hours.
yeah. It was a huge like time sink for very little payoff. So I don't think they should let people in unless people are MIA. They should not let designers go who did not make the cut. Like that's the whole point of weeding people out. And
About how
then,
many people did they let in?
they let several in who were not on the list.
Just like based on.
And they already had like tons of designers there, way more designers than they had publishers. So
Yeah.
even if they had not let the extras in, we still would have had big gaps in the rotation. So I hope it is better run next time. But I mean, it usually is at Gen Con because there's so many publishers. So that will never be a problem at the Gen Con one. But I hope for next year's BGG publisher speed dating, they keep the number of designers about even with the number of publishers, so that we're not sitting there for 20 minutes between publishers literally doing nothing. So. Yeah.
Was that also your worst experience of the con?
No. That was just a time sink. My worst, it's gonna be the same. If you've watched our other BGGcon episode for BGGcon 2017, I'm gonna once again complain about the wristbands. They are pointless. I go to many gaming cons, and no other gaming con requires wristbands, and people share badges. So what? Like, that's gonna happen anyway. The wristbands don't dissuade that. All you had to do is cut it with scissors and tape it back under the fold, and unless someone takes a real close examination of your wristband, there's no way to tell that it's been cut off your wrist.
Okay, we at Trinity Board do not endorse the opinions of Trey Chambers about committing fraud against BGGcon.
I'm not saying you should do that. I'm just saying people who really want to share badges can do that. And so the wristband does not serve its stated purpose, which is to dissuade badge sharing. In fact, my wristband could easily be popped off and put back on. Like, I didn't need to cut it and tape it.
Just because the lady who put it on liked you and put it on loose doesn't mean
no, it wasn't because it was loose.
So
the thing popped open, you could take it off and then put it right back on and snap it back. Like, pointless.
What would you
Literally
suggest?
pointless.
Here's my suggested alternative. DNA tests. Every time you go into the game room, they take a blood sample, they compare it against their database. If it passes, you're in. If not, you're out of there.
We can also test your sugar while you're doing it.
Hey, that's blood pressure and everything. Why not?
My solution is
But
use
use
badges,
badges.
like literally every other convention that exists. Just use the badges. If they get shared, you got your money anyway, so it doesn't matter.
Oh my god.
Alright, no, but I love BGGcon. It has nothing to do with the BGG people. It's someone, I know the person who runs the event, and it's his call, and so I give him, stuff about it in person too. He knows that I disagree with his decision, so this is not new information. Anyway, so let's go for our bottom 3 games of the con. I guess I'll start and we'll go that way now. I only have one dishonorable mention, and that is The River. It's the new Days of Wonder game. It is the most stripped down worker placement game that I've ever seen, but unfortunately they stripped the fun out of it at the same time, and it is just so basic. It's basically a game where you just go around, you get resources, you build a tableau of fields. Sometimes those fields produce incomes when you go to the spot with your worker that makes it produce income, but that's literally all there is to the game. And then you're doing some set collection to score points. It's just it's really bad.
Yeah, I played The River. It was, I don't think it's as bad as Trey's making it out to be. It's not the worst or simplest worker placement game I've ever played. That would have to go to that horrible D&D themed worker placement game.
Lords of Waterdeep?
Lords of Waterdeep? More like Lords of Zero Choice.
Lords of Waterdeep is not simpler than The River.
Oh, absolutely it is. But I mean, it's not all right. It's not a good game. It's very, very simple, very light.
My number 3 game though is Holding On, which was a really cool story. I think if you're playing as a story, then sure, go ahead and play it, because I do think it's an interesting story. I was intrigued to learn more about the story of the game, but the actual gameplay of the game is, again, so simple, and there's almost no decisions to be made. There's a slight push your luck element to it, and that's literally the game. It's do I want to spend this many staff and this many tokens on this decision, or do I want to not do that? And that's literally the only decisions you make in the game, is how much resources to allocate to this problem. But usually it's pretty obvious, and it just was not interesting. So that's my number 3, Holding On.
All right, my number 3 was Dice Settlers.
Dice Settlers.
Which maybe would have been better if we had Charles' theme song to it. But it's just it's a good idea. It's let's make a 4X game with a dice game. So, that's never been done before. Roll through the ages. The problem with the game is, it's not balanced at all, which is, you're going to see, is a running theme through my list this time, where there's one action in the game, exploration, that's just a way better way to get points. So, whenever you explore, you get a free dude on there. And
Really?
there's an area majority in it. And so, you could explore a new tile, it's worth 9 points. You're the only one who went on there. So, with one die, I got 9 points, which is just an astronomical number. So that was just, the entire game was in that, and the rest of the game was, this other stuff is just way harder to do. So.
Okay.
Alright, your third worst?
My third worst, and Ben is probably gonna contradict that, but anyway, so my third worst was Pandoria. Not because it was horribly done, but more the style of the game just wasn't for me.
What is Pandora? I literally know nothing about it.
Well, okay, so I purposely chose to play it because I had pre-ordered it, and I wanted to make sure it was a good game. So it's a tile placement, area control, Worker placement, I would say as well. Area enclosure. So it's a very clever tile placement game, I would say. But it's very much a take that feeling right from the get-go. So no matter how you choose to place your workers, you are always at risk of being knocked off the board. So it just not my type of game.
So take that work.
Well, it's not a take that game. I'm going to talk about this. It's in my top 3 list. So don't worry. I'll tell you how I actually feel about it. It's fine.
All right, Charles.
Oh man. Well, there are a lot of. I didn't get a chance to play. I'll tell you why. My favorite experiences, but I will probably say my number 3 game was Blackout, which is going to be one of you going on the way back. But there were a few caveats to this. Number 1, the experience that I had with the players I played with was bad. They were having an argument. Number 2, the rules, I believe, changed halfway through the game because they had been explained more.
Not just
multiple times.
6 or 7 times.
And, those are my main 2 caveats. But in general, and I think you have this complaint as well, my main problem with the game is the fact that it is sort of ugly.
The graphics were terrible.
Yeah, go ahead.
I mean, you can't even... So some of the iconography actually covers what it stands for, what it represents. And so you're just like, what does that say? And some of the icons are so, super small. You can't even read what it's supposed to be. So, it was
Talking
just...
about Blackout.
Blackout,
Okay.
yes. It was just horribly designed.
Yeah, the graphic design looks very dark.
Yeah, and the colors were sort of meddling together. I can't remember which colors it was.
Black and gray.
Black and not just those.
But it's also red and orange are very close to each other.
The primary colors were just
blue and green were sort of close.
Yeah, because they were just too dark and not muted. Well, maybe a little muted. It was just difficult.
You want to do wraparound or snake draft?
Well, my second thing with Blackout is I really didn't like how the area control worked in it that much. I felt like it had a runaway leader problem that was showing up in the games that we played.
That definitely happened.
And you can just get ahead of someone because your colors matched, or you were trying a certain deck thinning strategy that was aggressive on doing your area control, whereas they might be going for points, by recruiting and bringing back the cards. So I felt that was. I want to give you one more chance just because of the experience and going from there. But no, we can go wrap around.
All right, wrap around. So my second least favorite was Villainous. You've probably heard about this game or know about this game. It's very popular right now because of the license. And the license is the best thing about the game. It has really cool minis, components, and it has this Disney theme where you're a Disney villain.
Artwork and production are also top notch.
Yeah, and you're messing with your opponents, and it's basically a take that game, as most of these licensed games are, because that's what American audiences are used to. That's what they grew up playing, is take that game. So they put a little bit of modern mechanics in there, where it's basically an action selection game, and you choose which action you want to take, and you can't take the same action more than once, like a Scythe. So it has some modern mechanics, but at the heart of it, it's still very much a take that, this person's about to win, so let me beat them down game. It's just really lame, and also, I don't think, there was one turn in the entire game where I had to make an interesting decision. In every other case, the decision was very obvious what I should be doing, so it was just boring.
Were you getting beat down on?
No, I didn't even get messed with that much. I just thought it was a really lame game.
I feel like that game is also unbalanced.
I was never close to winning, which is why I never got beat down on.
Yeah.
Here's why I never got beat down on. Because I was playing one of the people that need
You're playing Captain Hook, right?
individual cards. I tried to block out as much of the game as I could. But I needed
It's so painful, I can't.
I think I was Jafar actually.
Or Jafar.
Yeah, I needed two individual cards in my deck to even start my path to victory, and one of those cards was at the bottom of the deck. Literally, at the end of the game, I lifted up my deck. It was the last card of the deck.
That's terrible design.
Yeah.
And there was no way for me to mill to it faster than I did, and the game ended before I even drew that card to start my path to victory.
Yeah.
That's how bad that game is.
Yeah. I think the thing people, the game itself, how many people did you play with as well?
We started with 6 and 2 people dropped because it was bad. So
Okay.
we ended with 4.
So
the second half of the game.
I have played this game. I actually own the game because I like the Disney license and all the accoutrements with it. And the fact that Cruella develops in the expansion. I'm a big Cruella fan. So anyway, but the one thing people forget about this game is, number one, it doesn't play 6. It really only plays 4. I don't know why. 6 people come.
Still bad at 4.
It's not great at 4. It's probably best at 3. It really shouldn't go past 4. It's very much like Terraform Mars. The other thing is people don't like the amount of discard you have to do even from the beginning with some of the characters is extremely high. So people don't discard thinking they'll build strategies in the future, but certain characters you just have to discard and you have to dig for the cards that aid you to discard more, and that's part of one of the main game strategies. And they say it in the rule book, but I think when people like are taught the game, they don't emphasize the amount you need to discard enough, because you need to literally probably take the discard action.
No, you don't always need to mill your deck. If the cards you need are on top of your deck, you don't.
Because when I think fun game mechanisms, I think discarding.
But that's all. That's my own defense against villainous. Yes, it needs some work. So.
And the victory conditions are also not balanced at all. But
they're fun. They're thematic. They're just balanced.
Yeah, it sounds like you had a lot of fun with them.
Yeah, that was great. All right, go ahead, Ben.
All right, my number 2 worst game was Western Legends.
Hey, that's on my
There we go.
list.
So, Western Legends, game of cowboy sandbox.
Yeah.
So you're a cowboy, you can do things in the West. It's gonna sound really cool. You can play poker, you can rustle cattle, you can arrest outlaws.
You could be an outlaw.
But really, what you can do is
Get gold.
wait a long time for other players to take their turn and then take your turn. The downtime in this game is so killer. And the worst part about this is I entered a tournament in it because I have no sense.
I also entered a tournament in it.
So I played not only a full game, 2 full games of the game.
Mm-hmm.
I could have told you you were
Lost the
gonna
second
make that
one,
game.
so I didn't get a free copy of it, which, whatever. The problem with the game is, in addition to it being a large amount of downtime, it's also horribly, horribly imbalanced. There's a card deck in the game, and this is just something that they keep doing in the games. They did the same thing in Root. And this card deck, one of the cards in it says, take 2 actions.
Yeah.
Which in a game where you get 3 actions per turn, an extra action is huge. And the person who won our second game got so many more of those cards than anyone else did.
I think the one thing about
And
the
it
game,
just kills the game.
and it's a point, because a lot of the game is playing with the highest cards, and with a standard poker deck, you can even play poker in the game, so it goes from 2 to ace.
Yeah.
The problem that they did was they decided, instead of making the cards that are inherently powerful, like the ace being the highest card, also have a weaker power, they made it so
it is
the
their
ace has the best power and
Yeah.
it's the highest card. So you get a high
Yeah.
card, you're good. If they had inversed that, I think it would be a better
That would
game.
help the game a lot. Although,
Yeah.
really, the king power should not be in the game at all.
Yeah.
Yeah, that game. I enjoyed the game, but we played it at a very low player count, and the downtime was still killer. Like,
Yeah.
so I agree with Ben that I love the theme and I like a lot of the mechanics, but the downtime is like I don't think sandbox games work as board games unless you do simultaneous, which I'm trying. What Western Legends did for me is it inspired me to. I'm now designing a sandbox game where you take simultaneous turns, because every sandbox board game that I've played, Zaya, Merchants and Marauders,
That's a terrible game.
the downtime is like you're waiting 5 to 10 minutes for your next turn with nothing to think about, because you can't, like, what the players are doing, they're going around picking up quests or interacting with the board. It rarely affects you as a player, so you're just like, it's just,
Those games also tend to have terrible balance problems.
And this game also, Western Lessons, the one thing I did in the time that I had to actually leave to go to the TG tournament before it started, but the one thing I did notice is that the Outlaws, they gain points every turn.
Mm-hmm.
The Marshals, because you can choose basically a affiliation, whether you're going to be good or evil.
Yeah.
The Marshals only gain points at the end of the game, and it's not enough points to
no, they also get points off the board.
They get points
Like,
off the board.
as they go up the board, it's not
Yeah.
every turn, but like there's certain
Yeah.
milestones they hit, they gain points.
But is it enough to offset what the Outlaws
The
get?
nature of the
It
balance
seems like it
is, if someone is doing an outlaw, you have to go arrest them to kick them off that track, or they'll win. It just forces player action.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
So,
Yeah, the martial track is actually a lot safer, because when you lose outlaw points, you lose them all. Like, it doesn't matter how far you're down the track, you get arrested, you just lose them all. So,
Okay.
But if you draw well from the deck, then you'll never lose them.
alright, Lisa?
Alright. My number 2 worst was Exodus, Paris Nouveau. I really, really wanted to like this game because I do enjoy playing Avalon. It's by the same people, Indie Boards and Games. To start off with, it had a max of 6 players, which is very limiting.
For a
Unfortunately.
social deduction game?
Yes,
Okay.
very, very limiting. Also, I feel like there was a lot less talking among the players because now you had to focus on the cards that you actually had in front of you. You had to focus on, well, if I play this, the rescuers would lose a life. Or, so there were multiple things that you now had to concentrate on. You had cards in your hand, you had the hunters and the rescuers both had like cards in front of you in the center that you had to kind of play. So you played your cards in your hand based on what was already laid up. So there was a lot more like, okay, what should I play, rather than discussing who was on which team. That being said, I also feel like there was so little info to go on to try to figure out who was on which team.
Yeah.
So most of the time you're just guessing. I mean, it was so...
Does it also have player elimination, or...?
No,
Or
there
no?
was no player elimination. It was more like try to figure out who is on, the rescuers team, so that you could give them. You would basically bid on them to go to play, a card down.
Okay.
So you're basically picking 2 players. One to place a card on the rescuer row, and the last player to play a card on the hunter's row. So that was really important. You pretty much had to figure out who was on which team. And it was impossible. So unfortunately, not a great game.
Alright, Charles?
My number 2 was actually Western Legends.
Oh.
So,
Alright, I think we covered that.
so we covered. I jumped in on that. So yeah, it was not very good.
My number 1 is going to be short and sweet. It's called Fool. It's a trick-taking game. It is incredibly boring, and you have almost no decisions that aren't obvious. And that's all I'll say about it, except you're a fool if you play that game.
Oh!
Wow.
I guess you were tricked into playing it. Hey!
Wow, man.
Wow.
Oh, man.
All right.
Do you have any other bids that you want to add, or no?
No.
Excellent.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like you weren't really game for it. Okay. Moving on. My number 1 worst game of the con was Everdell.
Hey,
There we go. Another match.
Is that your number 1 as
that's
well?
my number 1.
All right,
as well.
Everdell. Everdell is a very cute theme. You're like woodland animals. I think it was the squirrels or the porcupines or some shit. Oh, sorry. Some stuff.
There you go.
And the idea of the game is you either place your workers on worker placement bases, which either give you resources or drawing cards for reasons, or you build cards from either your hand or the board. So there's a couple rubs with the game. Number 1 is you never want to build cards from your hand because you can just build them from the board instead, and no one can steal the stuff from your hand.
Mm-hmm.
So therefore, anything that lets you draw cards, since you have a hand limit, is useless. So all those spaces that let you draw cards are useless. The second and larger problem with the game
Well,
is...
you have a hand limit of 9, though.
Of 8, yeah.
Of 8.
8. Yeah.
But why would I build stuff from my hand when I can build some from a public row that's immediately refilling?
That's true.
So the other issue is there's 2 types of cards in the game. There's buildings, and then there's dudes who live in the buildings. Critters, I
Critters.
think. Yeah, critters.
Critters.
Exactly. I know. So cute. So cute.
If you get the right card, then you get to build.
Yeah. So when you build a building, it lets the associated critter free. So I build the school, the teacher is now free to build. Which means, when randomly cards come up, if I happen to have the building for them, then I win. Also, the more expensive buildings give you the more expensive critters. So if I build the building that's already giving me a bunch of points, I just wait for that critter to come out. It's so expensive no one else is going to steal it from me, and I just build that for free. So the game just has a huge rich get richer problem, and it's just also super, super boring.
It's the same system as Seven Wonders, but like if you build a thing, you get the thing for free without spending resources.
Sort of, except it's a lot more like just digging through the deck until you get it. It's
Plus,
a lot
there's
more
also
wonderful.
a card draft and an ability to not top deck in Seven Wonders, and blocking
Yeah.
in Seven Wonders.
The difference is drafting,
Yeah.
right? Drafting is the
Yeah,
thing that
drafting.
stops that. So yeah, I see you have the thing that can give you the science house for free. I'm gonna take the science house thing so you can't have it.
I'll just make a wonder with this, and
Whereas this is top deck because it's Ascension style, so you have things just come out. And they're so expensive no one can take them from me.
I mean, the common pool works a similar way. Like, I had people, they built cards out from under me because they could see that I could get it for free, so they would just...
Well, the
do
problem
it
is, if a
themselves.
card costs 7 berries, no one is holding on to 7 berries. So that card is going to stay there until I build my building that makes it big, and I build it.
Wow, we never saw a card that cost that much. That was a lot.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah, that's what the richer things do. The best buildings give you the most expensive dudes, which is why it's a runaway layer problem.
And they also have the best powers, too. So
Also true.
I also felt it was just a little, I mean, it was a typical overproduced Kickstarter game. A lot of stuff wasn't needed, like the tree.
Oh my god, the tree. The giant cardboard tree. This tree was like
Yeah.
3 feet tall. Entirely unnecessary. It just held your extra dudes.
It was nice. It made it very beautiful. But, I
Welcome.
mean, you want to get someone to buy something. I thought I was going to
very
utilize it a little bit more, but no, I just used the regular board space.
Welcome
I
to the
never
Turn the
said-
Board where we just take dumps on like all the most popular hot new games.
Hey!
Well, maybe this
Like,
hobby game shouldn't be crap.
Yeah, I mean, there's a reason why I respect the old number ones on BGG, like Puerto Rico, as opposed to the new number ones like Gloomhaven.
Oh no, Gloomhaven is a great game.
Oh yeah, but you know what? $20. Founders agree. Gloomhaven. Is it a great game, or is it lucky that a designer caused
It's a
something?
different game though.
Oh yeah, but
Very
it's
different.
way
Very
it's
different.
way
Let's
too
not get
slow.
too far in the weeds. Go ahead.
Anyway.
Go ahead, Elisa, take your
Wait,
turn.
no, I will defend Everdell. I disagree with it. It's not my top 3 list, but I do think Everdell is a decent worker placement game. It's tableau building. I'm actually surprised Charles doesn't like it because it's tableau building. To me, it felt like worker placement terraforming Mars. And I liked it. I didn't think it was great. I'm not going to buy it, but it does have balance problems. I will agree with him on that. But I didn't have as huge of a problem with it as they did. Except they had a promo card that was mixed into the deck where it's like, exchange your hand with someone else's. So like, someone with 0 cards was going to take my hand of 8, and I was like, okay, this can't be real. So I looked it up, and it ended up being a promo card that the designer just threw into the game for like fun. And so the guy was gracious enough to say, I won't do that, and he switched the card out with another one because he didn't realize it was a promo card. But yeah, don't play with those cards, especially. if
Yeah,
you
don't play with
that
any of the
game.
cards in the game. Just play
Yeah.
without cards. You'll be fine.
Don't play the game, period.
Yeah, I mean, that's what you should do.
Play some stuff. Yeah. Anyways.
Alright. Number 1 on my bottom list was Raycoat. I think some of you have played it.
Mhm.
Yeah. Okay.
I played it. It's not great.
It's a worker placement. Basically, the theme is you're growing tomatoes, lettuce, carrots on Iceland. Very flat, kind of dry game. What really annoyed me was that you all of a sudden had to shift gears toward the end of the game to try to win victory points. So
For those
it was
that-
really annoying.
So I don't know if you ever played At the Gates of Loyang, but it's supposed to be him revisiting that theme to make a game.
At the Gates is much better. Like, oh my god, yeah, Raycold, the Cardinals, it commits the Cardinal sin. It's boring,
Yeah.
and it's a worker placement game where there's only 3 types of actions. There's get stuff, get a new greenhouse, or plant it.
Yeah.
Like the game's just very, very dull. Just very dull. I'm very disappointed by Uwe Rosenberg, who's
It's-
my favorite designer.
That's
but
actually
it's a huge miss for me.
It's 2 Essens in a row because Nilfjord came out last year and it was
No,
similar.
that game was terrible.
A lot of people have been telling me they actually like Nunsfjord a lot, so I
Well,
haven't
they're
played
wrong.
it. It's like the only Uwe Rosenberg game I haven't played, and I'd like to
It's,
try it.
it's not bad. It's just you
It's
have,
not good.
you have Glass Road, and it's like them revisiting Glass Road. It's not quite as good. But anyways, moving on.
All right, yeah.
We're supposed to do top experiences.
Yeah, let's talk about our favorite experience. My favorite experience is just the open gaming. Like, BGGcon is still the best con for open gaming. They have lots of private rooms, they have a huge ballroom, they have other, like, side rooms, just so many rooms devoted to open gaming. Like, no other con that I've been to is like that. In fact, open gaming is pretty bad at all the other cons that I've been to, which includes Origins, Gen Con, and PAX South, and, like, a few other random smaller cons. But the BGG open gaming experience just can't be beat. They have signs, they have teachers for the hot games. I mean, it's a really great experience. And I love those side rooms because in like open gaming and ballrooms, it's so loud. Like, I hate gaming there. The only time I went in there is to play the hot games. We like to go off to those side rooms where it's very quiet and it's just great. So if you like to game, if you like open gaming, I highly recommend BGGcon.
If you don't know about BGGcon, why are you listening to this podcast in the first place? My best experience was the Catch the Moon contest. So just to contrast this, whereas it took me 6, 7, 8 hours to play 2 games of Western Legends, the Catch the Moon game took me 10, 15 minutes. So we played, I didn't have to win, we just got into the drawing, and then they did the drawing immediately after we played. and I won a copy. My wife won a copy. Several people we knew won copies. So
Can you tell us about Catch the Moon? I don't know what that is.
sure. So it's a stacking game. It's a dexterity game where there's sort of a board with holes in it, and then a whole bunch of different types of ladders. So you put ladders in. You roll a die. It tells you when you place your ladder, how many ladders it has to touch. So it might have to touch exactly one ladder, or exactly
I
two.
saw that game.
Or it might have to be the highest ladder in the stack. And it's Jenga style. So if the thing collapses, you get a negative point. It's a cute game. I actually brought it today so we can try it. It takes like no time to play. But
Cool.
yeah.
That's
it's
really good
very simple.
components too, right? Nice wood ladders.
Oh
and
yeah,
stuff.
yeah, they're real nice. Yeah.
I remember.
We played the giant version, which is cool, which I don't have. But
Oh, were they
overall,
selling both? Or?
no, that's just for the con they had that.
Okay.
But overall, I thought it was a fun game, and it didn't take all of my day to play. So, and I won it. So
Alright.
that's my best experience.
Very good. Elisa?
I kind of touched on it already. I mean, I think BGG is pretty much like a gamer's heaven. Just being able to stay up late, playing whatever I want. I mean, it was a huge difference from, when I play Werewolf here, I always have to be like, okay, bye guys, I have to leave. I have to work the next morning. So, being able to stay up all night to play Werewolf was, it was great. It was fantastic.
I feel like you can do too much of it. So my wife was staying up all night.
Yes.
First night she stayed up till 4:30. Next night 6:30. Next night 8:30. So
Yes.
just like staying up.
Yep.
Till all hours of the morning.
It was great. We
8:30
probably
in the morning, yeah.
yes.
Wow,
The
she
last
beat my
two-
record.
Yeah, we stayed up to 8:30. I
That's insane.
walked straight up to the desk after that and requested a late checkout, which was going to be in a few hours. But we probably weren't making the best decisions as far as LinkedIn goes. Oh, hey, we were tired, but we were having fun, and that's what it was all about.
Meanwhile, I was busy adulting. I went to bed at like 10:30, 9:30, and 11:30. And on the last night, I went to bed at 2:30 because I was hanging with her. What did I do in the meantime? Oh yeah, I won the TG tournament, which was my best experience of the con. Almost, I thought I was going to be the top until I won random games in the drawing. And then I came home and I found my car was still in the parking lot that I lived in for 5 days.
Everything was coming up, Charles.
So, honestly, this was my best BGGcon. Winning the TG tournament, me and Jeremy both beat the person who taught us the game. Was probably the most. Hats off to Marty Hoff, and and it does feel quite an accomplishment to be able to back up. Saying I'm a big strategy gamer who likes to find strategy in the most random things and winning teaching, even beat Ben's team.
Yeah. Well, and next week Charles and I are going to Vegas, and we're taking that luck for a spin.
Oh no, it's already passed. I had to work like 4 days after, or 3 to 4 days after Thanksgiving break. So.
Ouch. Alright, so top 3 games. Let's start on this side now.
Alright. Well, actually, I really enjoyed one of the games I won. And it's really simple. It's called Costume Party Assassins.
That was a fun one.
This game it's stupid, right?
Yeah.
It has the stupid mechanic. You have a deck of cards and you have meeples, and you put the meeples in a room, and then you draw a card, and one of those is your meeple. Then you roll a dice, and you either move a meeple to the room matching the color you roll, or if you roll black, you kill a meeple in your room. It is simple as can be. It is also a very fun game to play. It says it only plays 6 players. We comfortably played it with 9 players. It says it takes about 15 to 30 minutes. Every game was 10 minutes. So, I have nothing else to say. Great little party game.
I have to try this. Yeah. It actually sounds fun. Alright, Elisa, your number 3?
I didn't put it. I only did 2.
She only liked 2 of the games she played there. Jeez.
Well, to put it in
Bad.
the top,
They call me the
in
critical
top game.
We have a new most critical game.
I do not agree with
Honorable mention of Variant Werewolf for Elisa, because it's not an official game, but she played so many
I
Variant
forgot.
Werewolves.
Okay, yeah, there was a bad werewolf game, but that does not make the top 3.
Yeah.
It would have made the bottom 3. But
Alright.
anyway.
Alright, so I have an honorable mention before I do my number 3, which is a game called Illusion, which is a real small card game where it's a deck of cards full of abstract art things. So it's just like a bunch of things that have a combination of the 4 different colors. So this is a game that Trey could not play successfully because it was just very much green, yellow, blue, red. And so each time you pick up a card, you're looking at one of the colors on it. And so I'm like, oh, I'm looking at yellow, and you're trying to figure out what percentage of this card is yellow. Maybe 12%. And so you put in a row that matches that. It's kind of like a timeline where you're trying to put specifically in the right place. So you want to put it in increasing order. And then when someone thinks it's not correct, they call you out, and then either they're right or you're right, and you get the points. So it was actually a really simple idea, but it was a lot of fun, and I was extremely, extremely bad at it.
So you loved it.
I scored 0 points. Yep, yeah, it was a lot of fun. So that's my honorable mention. My number 3 is Trap Words. Trap Words is custom taboo. So basically, you have some kind of word that you're trying to get your teammate to guess, but there's certain words you can't say. The words you can't say are words that the other team wrote down.
Yeah.
So
and depending upon what room you're in, the other team gets the right X number of words.
Yeah.
Which is usually between 3 and 7.
Yeah, exactly. And there's different challenges in it. Like you go to certain rooms and there's curses in there that change the rules, or there's a big bad you have to fight who has certain rules. Like the one we had to fight said you can only say 10 words exactly. So that was an interesting challenge. It was a lot of fun because actually there's a lot of metagaming in it where it's like, oh, I see the word bird, so I can't say the word fly, but I know you're not going to say the word fly, so I didn't even write down fly. And it's just like, what did they say? Super fun.
I liked Trap Words a lot. My problem with it though is like there's like a list of 10 types of clues you can't give, so I don't feel like it's a kind of party game you can play with your family, or you could play with your family, but people are going to be making rules errors like left and right, you know.
Yeah, that's true.
So like I think it's a brilliant concept, but I do think the execution of it is difficult just because they have to. And I understand why they do it. Like to make the game work, you kind of have to give all these parameters, but it was a long list, and I was struggling to remember, like, what kind of clue can I give? Does this count as a rules violation?
The gist of it, the short version of it, and the hardest one for us to remember was you can't use proper nouns. But if you avoid proper nouns, it's just the same as Codenames rules, which is you have to use semantic clues. You can't do sound-based clues.
Yeah.
If you remember that, that's essentially the rules.
No, there was, basically that covers it, but yeah.
My thing with the game, and I thought the game looked fun, is that it is sneaky long. You probably best played on timers because the discussions between the teams over what words to use versus the actual playground is like much longer than the actual game. So you can have what should be a 20 to 30 minute game easily hit an hour to 75 minutes.
Yeah, that's a player issue though, I think.
Yeah.
And actually, one of the curses we hit was it actually forced us to use a timer for the writing down words. So you can write down as many trap words as you want, but you have to do it on the timer.
And it was supposed to benefit that team, but it actually made it worse for them because they worked down really bad words and we easily avoided them.
We had the same curse, I think.
Well, it's definitely a game that you will win if your other team is not skilled. It's a game of equal skill to be successful. But I thought it was still fun.
Alright, my honorable mentions, Teotihuacan?
Wakaha.
Yeah, that game.
Teotihuacan.
There you go. She
So,
said the best.
3 different pronunciations. I thought it was a really good game, but I don't know if the replayability is there. However, I discovered after the game the whole board is modular, so that will help a lot, but I don't know if it's enough to make me want to play it a whole bunch of times. Blue Lagoon, which is like through the desert, but like much shorter. It's a Rhino Knizia game, area control. It's very fast and very simple, but also very good. Ganz schön Clever, which was a Kinderspiel nominee, which is a dice game, and probably one of the favorite dice games I've ever played, although we played it wrong. However, they played it with the right rules the next day, and they said that my rules mistake actually helped the game and made it more fun.
Designer!
But it was an accident.
I really want to try that one.
We'll take, if you want to contact us for that design, eternallyboard.com.
My Ganz schön Clever variant.
Yes.
Animaru, which is an unreleased game that's on Kickstarter right now. It's a co-op dice game, which I think is better than the Reckoners. So if you like the Reckoners, but this is like it's a meatier version, and I felt like you had a lot more interesting decisions to make. I mean, I like the Reckoners, but I think Animaru is actually better.
Cool.
And Science or Die, which is by Eric Royce, who designed Spirit Island. It's basically a dexterity game, a co-op dexterity game, where you're building like DNA shapes with blocks, and you have to balance it correctly and then make sure it matches the thing. It's really, really cool game, and it has a 10-minute timer, so it's also a real-time game.
Is this the game he was designing like 3 or 4 years ago?
Yeah, he's still designing it. It's been signed, and the Kickstarter, I think, starts early next year, so definitely keep an eye on Science or Die.
Yeah, this is a great game, and as all Eric's creations, it has been. I swear I saw this game somewhere like 3 to 5 years ago.
Yeah,
And
no,
I
he's been
played
designing
it
like
again
5
4
years.
Yeah, I think I played it year 5, year 4, and I haven't seen it since then. So.
Spirit Island also took like 5 years to design. Like he doesn't design a lot of games, but the ones he designs, he puts a lot of effort into them. All right, my number 3 is Azul, the Stained Glass of Frank Sinatra. It's about a cult that worships Frank Sinatra, and there's a bunch of stained glass in their church.
It looks like Now Laters.
Yeah, and you're...
Because Sinatra tried Now Laters whenever he was smoking too much.
Yeah, I actually think it reminds me of like the little hall.
I meant to say
cough.
Jolly Ranchers, not...
Oh,
Jolly
Jolly
Ranchers, yeah, Jolly
To me, it reminds me of the little hall cough drops. Yeah, it's just it's like Azul. If you know anything about Azul, it's just a tile placement game where you're like scoring sets of colors and you're drafting them from a pool. When you draft a set of tiles, the others go into the middle. And people, when the key mechanic of the game is when you take a tile, you have to take all the tiles of that color in the area you're pulling from. And if you take more than you need, you actually get negative points. So it has the same exact core mechanic as Azul, but it fixes some problems that I had with Azul. Like the score track is much better, it's clearer. The penalties, I think, make a lot more sense, and they're more penalizing. And
the board is modular.
The board is modular, there's a lot more replayability.
And because of this, one of the trends of both the math trade and the virtual flea market at this year's BGGcon, and I heard at SM2, is people are just trying to get rid of Azul.
Yeah.
So they're making Azul is leaving the collection, and stained glass of Frank Sinatra is coming in.
There are some people who like Azul because they think it's simpler, and it is simpler. So if you just want the pure mechanic of it, Azul is probably a better choice. But for me, I like the additional things to think about when playing the Stained Glass of Frank Sinatra. So for me, and it's also a much prettier game in my opinion. So for me, I'm all about stained glass, but other people different.
All right, so just to clarify for our listeners, what's the actual name of the game?
Azul Stained Glass of Sintra.
Yeah.
But you should always call it a Stained Glass of Frank Sinatra. All
I'm
right,
not looking out because then you're gonna have some trouble, but...
No, Ben's next. So.
Oh, we're snaking it back?
Oh yeah, we're going the other way.
All right, my number 2 game is Underwater Cities. So Underwater Cities is a very cool game. I would call it a Terraforming Mars killer.
Wow!
I agree.
Charles already disagrees with you.
Whoa!
No, I agree.
I have the floor!
Underwater Cities, I put for number 2 as well on mine.
Yeah, so it's a Terraforming Mars killer because it feels very similar. You're building stuff onto a board, and it has the whole card deck of getting cards and then using them for different things. But unlike Terraforming Mars, much better balanced. It's a tiered deck, so you don't have the powerful cards come out early, and there's no Take That in the game. Oh, look at that, a modern game without Take That. Who'd have thunk? So it's just a super cool game where you're building these cities underwater. There's some action spaces. Each time you take an action space, you play a card with it. So it's kind of like the worker placement, and then it's associated with cards, and you have to match the certain colors together, and you're building these little cities and then building little things next to them that produces different resources. Overall, it was a very fun, pretty heavy, good game. So that's my number 2.
Yep, same here.
So to flesh on to their points, this is Underwater Cities. It's by Vladimir Suchi. He actually designed my favorite game of last year's BGGcon, which was Pulsar 2849. He also did Last Will and the expansions for that. And he comes from the Czech Game Edition family under Vlada Chvátil. This is his new venture into self-publishing, which has been supported by Chvátil, but the one thing you'll notice about this game is the fact that its components are trash. It's cardboard. Or my fault. I won't say trash.
Says the Terraforming Mars fan.
Terraforming Mars. But there's something really weird about the board. The board was actually warping, and I'm not quite sure why. The print quality is good of it, like, the colors are really good and vibrant, and the graphics are fine, but the cards are extremely thin, and the board is also, for a cardboard board, extremely thin. And you can tell that this is this company's first time publishing a game on their own. So look for upgrade kits for this game as well, because it's sort of going to need them.
Yeah, who cares about that? It's a good game.
Yeah, it's a
It is a good game.
It's a
Charles, you number 3?
Oh, I thought we were on number 2.
We're number 2.
Yeah, we're on number 2. Yeah. My number 2 was costume. My number 3 was Costume Party Statue. My number 2 is actually Carpe Diem, which is Ravensburger's new Stefan Feld game, which also at the top. I did like the game itself, but it also has like some really bad design decisions in it, especially when it comes to colors. For some reason, the main colors of the game are brown, rust, gray, and forest green, and dark purple,
Yeah.
and they all just sort of blah all together. In addition, it has a component that requires counting of chimneys, which I found out were only on the red roofs, but it looks like chimneys are on half the other buildings, which they're not. And there's a couple buildings, well, they just look physically different, which is fine for colorblind people. They look very close together, and the colors, the red and the yellow are both hewing towards orange from both directions, so that's hard to see as well. That's it. The game itself, one of the better fells I played in the last couple of years. It does have one of his favorite things. It is an extreme blocking game. There's a lot of blocking in it. You can take tiles from other people on their path, and it has like unintentional blocking and purposeful blocking. You might block someone just because it was something you needed, and you didn't even realize you were blocking them. So I mean it's typical Feld in that way. But a few of the other mechanics are also there, such as the turn order track and the turn order track being points at the end. But being able to walk around and do different things, and also having the mechanic to control where you go is all very good. And the in-game scoring, basically you lay out all the victory conditions at the beginning of the game, and then there's 3 different rounds, and each round you will place a scoring token on 2 of the available ones, and by the end of the game you will have filled up a whole tableau of different scoring options.
Yeah.
So people can block you from that too. But
It was a fun
Kind of similar to Emperor's Choice in some way.
Yeah.
It's a very fun game, actually. I think the graphics, the colors were the biggest problem with that game.
Yeah.
But
So
I would play it again. I mean, it's fun.
the colors were so bad that I had to discuss it first.
Yeah, I don't know how the order got so messed up, but I'm the only one who hasn't listed number 2, so I'll list it.
Okay.
It's Keyforge, which I'm sure you probably have heard of if you're into board games at all, because
Money
it's
maker of the money.
a big release from Richard Garfield, who made Magic the Gathering, and this is similar to Magic. It's like a heads-up game where you're trying to, win by sending out a tableau of monsters to fight your battles for you, and in this case, instead of damaging the person, you're trying to gain a resource called Amber, which, it could work. It could have been life, like they could have just reversed instead of gaining something, you're losing it, but whatever. The point is, you're gaining a resource, and when you gain a certain amount of this resource, you forge a key at the beginning of your next turn. So if they don't take you down below the needed requirements before your next turn, then you're going to get one of the keys, and once you have 3 keys, you win the game. It is a very cool and interesting system. I mean, it plays very similar to all of these games, right? Hearthstone and
Gwent,
Game of
Artifacts,
Thrones. Yeah, I mean,
a card game. Yeah.
all of these games play very similar. You have a tableau of monsters, and they all have special abilities. You have other cards in your hand that have special things. So it wasn't groundbreaking, but I thought it was really cool. The twist on this one is there's no mana or any kind of resource you spend to use cards. Instead, you select each deck is made up of 3 suits, and on your turn you select one of those 3 suits to activate. So, which would include the cards of that suit in your tableau, and you can play them from your hand for free. So it was a neat twist. So you can hold back. Like if you have a really cool card, but it's the only card you have of that suit to play, you might want to hold back and wait till you have more of that suit, and then just have a turn where you choose that suit. And actually, that's not the gimmick. The gimmick of the game is that every single deck is unique. So every deck they print, they use a computer algorithm, and it's to me, this is the uninteresting portion of the game. I just want a good game that plays well. But people are really excited about it because it's new technology. They like how every deck is different. It removes the deck building component from this style of game, which is either a plus or minus, depending on your opinion on deck building.
Plus in my book.
What my worry of it, though, is the balancing. It has a balance mechanism built in, but how many games will you have to play with a deck before you realize it's unbalanced and then start handicapping it? So it's you've wasted all this. You got this uber super powerful deck, and by the time it goes 10-0, then you're okay, I guess I should start using the handicap mechanism when I use this deck. But then you've just wasted 10 games using this unbalanced deck
Buy your deck.
that you had.
Don't like that deck?
If you
Buy
that's a
another deck.
waste, right?
Yeah.
If you don't like that deck,
mean,
buy another deck.
So
Yeah.
I think it's the error that you're making is the only reason you really need to balance it is if you're doing in tournament play, and there's a specific system that they use already. You aren't going to play 10 games before they start limiting your deck.
Right. Well, but at the same time, let's say so the barrier of entry is pretty low. You don't have to spend like $20 to play this game.
Yeah, $10 per deck.
Yeah, $10 per deck. But like then you have to buy a new deck, right? If like you buy two $10 decks, but like one deck always beats the other one, you either have to start handicapping it, in which case you've already those plays that it took you to realize that it's imbalanced. Those like kind of waste. Or you can buy a new deck. Yeah. So then they get your money anyway, you know? So like
buy another deck.
It's kind of a nightmare. It's a balancing nightmare, and the other problem I have with the system is that there have been reports of decks where like you get a card in the deck that works with another card, but you don't get the other card that it works with. So then it's just a dead card.
Well, that shouldn't be true. I think, from my understanding, the way the decks are built, the way the algorithm works, is if it's referencing another card, you'll have at least one copy of that card.
That's how it's supposed to work, but that's not how it has always played out.
That's a programming error, though.
Yeah.
That's how it's supposed to be.
Yeah, obviously it's not supposed to happen, but it's happened with many decks. There's people posting pictures online where you can clearly see the card it needs is not there. So it's not a perfect system.
Production area.
And so, but I think it's a cool game. It plays really well.
Go to the website and buy a individual card. Yes.
But that's why removing deck building like
you can't add
breaks
cards
that problem
because it has the name of the deck in the top, so
yeah.
You can't.
Problematic. Anyway.
All right, my number one is Pandoria, which, as you know, is not Lisa's favorite game.
But it's yours.
What makes Pandoria such a great game is it's like someone took Carcassonne and they said, you know, Carcassonne's nice, it's fun, but how can we be more of a dick to each other while we're playing it?
No. Family show.
Oh, how can we be more vicious to each other?
He was talking about Richard. We have a guy named Richard.
How can we be more Richard to each other while playing? Classic Richard.
Vicious is a good word.
So the interesting thing, so the way the game works is very simple. Each time you play a tile, you have simple one choice. You play the tile somewhere. If you want, you can put your worker somewhere on that tile. And you're creating these different types of terrains. Whenever a terrain is completely surrounded, everything in that terrain leaves, and everyone who's adjacent to that terrain will score whatever that resource is. It might give you wood, or it might give you points, or whatever. It might give you crystal. The thing is, people will put their things into that zone, and if you surround that zone before those guys score, the guys are eliminated. So it's really clever, because you can you can set up, well, I'm surrounding this giant area, it's going to be great, but then someone surrounds you, and all those dudes you put there are gone now. So this is very, very vicious.
This is why you like the game?
Yeah. It's very pleasantly vicious.
I'm kind of surprised myself. Okay.
I'm surprised you put it as number one.
Oh, for sure. It was the best game I played at the con. So much so I got it. So
I don't think Charles would like it.
What was your favorite game, Alicia?
So that's the thing, though. Like, people can set themselves up for really good stuff. So like, oh, I'm gonna be here, and once the zone closes, then I'm gonna score so many points, and then you just make sure that zone never closes. Make a hole there that I can't fill. It's a lot of fun.
Alright, so my number one was Teotihuacan, City of Gods.
Wow, you're really good at them.
I really loved that game. You have dice. You never roll your dice, but your dice equal your workers, and as you move your dice, they become stronger. And pretty much, I think every section on that board, you had two options. You could either, gain a resource, or there was a locked.
Yeah, you had at least two options in every
section where you would have like a premium thing. Anyway, there's a lot of replayability with it because you could change the layout of the board completely from what I saw.
And use different technologies.
Yes, the graphic design was really well done.
For the most part, there are a couple of really bad problems though.
Yeah. I remember. Yeah, there was one thing, but I mean, otherwise it was really, really good. I mean, it's really fun to play. There were a lot of things to think about. Definitely a heavy game.
Yeah.
But I really enjoyed it. It's quite nice.
It was a long teach. It was like 30 minutes to learn, but it was very. Once you start playing it, it's very smooth and very obvious. Like you can playing it was simple, but learning it was complex. If that makes sense.
Yeah.
Yep. I've been trying to get this game for 3 months now, but it went out its first print here. It came out in August, I believe, at the end of August, and it's been lost ever since.
It's not designed by Lacerda, but it plays very much like a Lacerda game. So if you like Lacerda, like getting technologies, having different special power tiles that kind of key off of each other, and getting points many different ways, then I think you would like this game.
It plays like Sulkin. it's designed by the designer of Sulkin.
It reminded me a
Yeah.
lot more of a Lacerda game than it reminded me of Sulkin, honestly.
I don't know. It looked like so. Anyways, I can see that too. Lacerda is sort of close to some Sulkin stuff. But all right. Moving to my number one game. Was actually a game that came out I think earlier this year or last year, but it was Whistle Stop with the Rocky Mountains expansion, which adds a lot to it. Whistle Stop is I guess you would say it's sort of a pick up and deliver train game, except you're picking up cubes and you're delivering them to companies to gain stock in the company. So it has a little bit of that mechanic as well. The entire game board is very similar to a big open frame, and you put suburbia tiles on it as part of your.
It's route building where you build the routes, but not.
Yeah.
It's not your route, but you build the routes.
Yeah, and you end up drawing tiles in a ticket to ride style in order to figure out what you're going to do next. There's various special powers you can get along the way. The Rocky Mountains expansion adds some more difficult terrain in the middle and makes it a little bit longer and gives you some more goals and points you can get for it. And it's just a really good light train game. I mean, you don't see a lot of them. Of course, Trade is not Imperial, but it won't be out till next year. So,
what are we gonna play in the meantime?
I'm hoping that this is one of the. I'm hoping there's a renaissance of train games that are not 18xx, but who are good games, and they have like stocks and things of that nature. Even though the stocks are not a super. Well, they're good for scoring points, but they're not the same as 18xx games. But it was fun to route build. It's fun to go around and you have a nice little train building racing element to it. So.
I liked it a lot. I thought the mechanics were solid. To me, the one thing I did not like about it at all is the bonus points for stocks is all or nothing. There's no second place in stocks, so like you could spend like a lot of your game getting like stocks in a color, and then someone ties you and they have the tie break on you, or they get one more stock than you. And then all that effort, I mean, you still scored the points when you got the stocks initially, but like you're going to lose out on 15 points, which is a lot in this game. So I don't like the all or nothing for the stocks. And to me, that really decreases my enjoyment of the game. But
the Rocky Mountains expansion added the 2 spaces where you get to sell the stocks.
Yeah, there are ways. There are ways to mitigate that, but like you do have to set up for it. Like if your last train is on the map and it's going to the south, and the sell your extra stocks tile is up north, like there's probably no way you're going to get up there before the end of the game, and you could just be stuck with those stocks for no points. So, but overall, I thought the game was really solid. I liked it a lot. All right, my number one is Just One. There can only be one, and it's named Just One. And it's the second party game that involves Taboo on our list, but this is more like co-op categories. Essentially, you have a dry erase board, you have a marker. Everyone on your team writes down a word that is a hint for the person on your team to guess the word. However, if people write the same word down, then those bounce, and the person has to close their eyes, and like if they bounce, they don't get that clue. So it's like it's kind of categories twist where like you want everyone to think of a unique clue. And so a lot of times, of course, you fake each other out, and no one puts the most obvious clues because everybody's worried they're going to bounce. So then you have a bunch of these esoteric clues, and it's really hard for the guesser to guess because they have all these weird clues. So it was a really neat game. I played it like 5 or 6 times over the course of the con. It's an amazing party game. I'm definitely going to pick up a copy, and it's the only game I rated an 8 that I played at the con. It's just a really good party game, and you should definitely check it out.
Sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. So I don't know. I thought it was funny that my number one game of the con was a party game, but hey, if it happens that way, it happens that way.
I mean, Codenames was the number one game one year too. So.
Yep. All right. Anything else before we wrap it up?
Nope. I think it's time to play safe. Wrap it up, Trey.
Are we going to talk about new games or no?
We don't have. We are like already way over time, but it's been a good episode. So please. Shout out to Punchboard Media. I forgot to do it at the top of the episode. That's our podcast for our board game podcast. That's our network, rather. And they have podcasts for every different type. They have heavy games, light games, party games. They have comedy shows that are based on gaming. So check them out. There's definitely podcasts there that will interest you. Please don't forget to like, share, subscribe. We're on YouTube and Twitter at Eternally Bored, no underscore, and board as in board games, of course. And our website is www.eternallybored.com. Until next time, We're
Eternally bored, so you don't have to be.
Yay!